Alright guys, on deck today is going to be the ATN THOR-HD. This is the 2 to 8 power model. We have it mounted on the X95, and what we're going to be doing is just checking a couple of the functions and sort of how far can we identify targets. So the functions we're going to mainly be looking at is the RAV, which is the Recoil Activated Video. Basically, it's a setting where the recoil of the rifle activates the record mode for a set time before, during, and after the shot. So we want to see how well that works, because that'll be a pretty nice feature when we try to take this out to get some coyotes and whatnot. Don't have to remember to press record to capture that video. Additionally, we want to try the Ballistic Software. We have our data entered and zeroed up, and we want to see when we enter in a range if in fact the Ballistic Software is accurate. It will automatically compensate for said distance. In addition to that, we want to see how far we can actually detect known size targets. So what we have is a reduced size Ipsc target. It's roughly the head and C-zone area, and then we have the full size Ipsc target. And we'll be trying to identify the reduced size from 100 and 200, and then we'll do the full size from 300 and 400 and see how all this shakes out. So that's what's coming up next.
We're at 100 yards, and we're looking at a reduced size Ipsc steel target, so it's roughly the head and C-zone area, and we're going to go ahead and zoom in, and we're going to try to engage the head. Alright, I can actually see the splotches where it hit. So that's 2 hits in the head. Alright, we're going to go ahead and push this back to 200. We're going to go ahead and zoom in. Alright, and there's our small steel. It could just make out the head and obviously the body. So we'll go ahead and fire off 2 shots. Alright. Yeah, I have to find a better way to get a heat source at some point. I'll play around with that later. But we'll go take a look at that.
Alright, so here's our results from the 100 and 200. 100 yards, the head was actually fairly easy to see and target, and we were able to stack one round on top of the other. No big deal there. So 100 yards, you could definitely engage a target. Probably about the size of a rabbit or so. Maybe a headshot on a pig, things of that nature. But not much difficulty at 100. At 200, it was starting to get a little hard to see because basically the background temperature, the dirt and the rocks, is the same temperature as steel. There's no sun out today, so this is not heating. It's not heating up any different than the background temperature. So I put my cardboard stand behind it because that's showing up as cooler to give some contrast. Hopefully it'll show up on the video. It wasn't the easiest to see, at least to locate. Once I located it, I could make out the silhouette, just barely make out the head, mostly just the body. And we put 2 rounds, again, real close together, basically one on top of the other. There is some wind blowing. I will say, when you're in the thermal, actually looking through the thermal, that is one of a little different than looking through a scope, where you can actually see basically the environment moving and shifting as the wind blowing. So that's definitely something to take into account, as you'll want to get your wind corrections done before you get in the scope, if you need to do so. That being said, I could see engaging coyote size, maybe pig size animal at 200 yards, especially considering it would give you a nice heat source instead of blending in with the background. But what we'll do now is we'll move the target stand over, and we'll try to get it behind our larger steel, our full-size Ipsc steel, and see if we can't see that from 300. And we'll try the smart shooting solution, which is the bullet drop compensating computer, by entering in the range and see how well that translates on the steel.
Alright, we're 300 yards down range. We got our range entered into the computer. Hopefully our actual ballistic data is accurate, And yeah, we can make out that silhouette without too much difficulty. Alright, I could hear him hit, so we'll go down range and check it out.
Alright, we're back down range from our 300-yard shots, and it looks like we're fairly centered up. A little bit of breeze blowing, but didn't affect us too much. We were holding right up in this area, so it looks like our ballistic data is fairly close. May need to tweak it a little, but overall not too bad. Now, ATN lists the identification range on this particular thermal for a human, which is where you can make out limbs and such on a human, at 250. I don't see much reason to doubt that, considering I could just make out the smaller head of the steel from 200, so I would see no reason why you couldn't make out arms and legs at that distance. They list the recognition range at 400, which is where you can basically make out that, yeah, that's a human silhouette. We were able to see this fairly well and make out what it was from about 300, so if we can see it from 400 and tag it, then I would see no reason to really doubt that, considering this is just the torso without arms and legs and such. Keep in mind, again, there's no heat source here. It's basically the same temperature as the background, so we've put our silhouette target behind it to give it some contrast with the cardboard, because the cardboard's showing a little cooler than the steel. So hopefully we'll be able to get this done for 400, but just keep that in mind.
Alright, we got our range set at 400, and this is really tough to make out, especially without a heat source. We were able to barely see it, so let's see if we can at least get a couple hits. Alright, not sure, but let's go check it out.
Alright, so we have our shots from 400. We have one dead center and one center but low, so not bad, all things considered. Considering there's no real heat source here, I'm just using the outline of the cardboard backer to give a little contrast so I can make out the blob, if you would. Looks like our ballistic software worked quite well. It's fairly accurate. May have to tweak the data a little, but overall pretty good. Alright, so this has been a little bit of a look at the ATN THOR-HD. This is the 2:8 384 model with the 25mm lens. Overall, seems fairly solid for the money. ATN lists recognition range at 250 for a human, identification range. That's where you can make out arms and legs, features basically, and 400 for recognition range, where you can basically just tell that's a human silhouette. I don't see much reason to doubt that, considering at 200 I was still able to just make out the head on my steel, which is smaller than a real head. And on my full-size Ipsc target, I was able to make that out to 400. Wasn't easy, considering no heat source, trying to get the contrast in the background, but I was able to do it. The ballistic computer in this does seem to be accurate as long as you enter in the proper data. We had entered in our ranges, and we did get respectable hits, given the data we've entered. So overall, not too bad. This is only my second time out shooting with this. The interface is not that hard to learn. It's more like trying to learn a new smartphone. So once you get used to it, not too bad. We'll see how well the video recording options worked. Hopefully when we get back, we'll have some reasonable video. I do want to try to take this coyote hunting and maybe pig hunting at some point. So probably would keep my shots on a coyote within about 150 yards, on a pig within about 200. But I'll leave the ranges that you want to engage things based off of what you saw. I'll leave that for you to decide on your intended use. But for now, hopefully we'll get this thing out there and and get some video actually hunting. If you like this kind of content, guys, and you haven't already, please subscribe. If you've already subscribed, or even if you don't subscribe, please like and share the video. It helps the channel out. As always, I do appreciate your guys' comments, but please keep those comments professional. And I'll see you guys next time.